guys, Ariel over here at Nyth. I'm out in the garden today. If I don't get rained out, it looks like a thunderstorm's rolling in. I'm feeling a couple raindrops starting. I wanted to talk for a minute today about dirt. Some of you guys saw my last video where I was planting stuff and were asking about how did I get such pretty, beautiful black dirt? Did I haul it all in? Was it from here? What did I do to it? I do indeed have some pretty beautiful black dirt here now. The history of this garden is that I've lived here for about 4 years now, and when I moved in there was no garden here. This was just a clearing with lots of little brush and shrubs like you can see around the edges growing here. So just mowed off some of the brush, and then I had a friend who had a big tractor with a tractor tiller, and we tilled up this chunk of dirt, which involved hauling out rocks. Lots and lots of rocks, and I mean everything from the ones this size, which I'm still picking out, to ones this size and this size and this size and this size. We took out 4 or 5 truckloads of rock. Most of it went into actually building out the little driveway edge that comes up the hill to my house. Part of it's in a pile right over there. So we got that out. This dirt, for the most part, was what was left in between those rocks. And it was pretty rich black soil. There just wasn't a lot of dirt, and there was an awful lot of rocks. In those 4 years since, I have continued to, every time I'm working in the garden, pick out pebbles like this and, you know, chuck them over into the woods edge. I'll show you there's a lot laying over there. It's going to soon be a pebble pathway. So the dirt in between was pretty good. Now, I am a big fan of kind of some of the methodology expressed by people like Ruth Stout, if you've ever heard of her books or her gardening ideas, or Charles Dowding, who's a British gentleman. He's got gorgeous gardens and veggies and so on, and several other people. But if you put it all together, I think the gist of it is, if you want to grow food, which is my main goal in the garden, first you have to really grow your dirt. Then your dirt will grow the food, and the food will take care of your body. So, in the interest of growing dirt, I try not to put any kind of chemicals or poisons in it, which I screwed up on once and had a problem with poisoned hay that I did not realize was poisoned. You can see my video from last year about that. I do try to keep it mulched a lot of the time. For a while I'd used hay for that, and that worked really well if you don't have hay that has been poisoned. And a lot of the hay did break down into the soil. I have also every year, as I've had access to it, added compost of my own, kitchen scraps and weeds and such. I got maybe 2 pickup trucks of pretty well rotted, several-year-old horse manure from somebody that was cleaning out a place. I got, one time I was doing firewood, cleaned up just a lot of the chainsaw shavings, so not wood chips like these pathways are made out of, but the real fine, not quite sawdust, but close. Mix that in. For about a year you could still find little bits of sawdust, now you can't. And so all of that stuff is also broken down and added to the dirt. Well, I really like the mulching with hay, just because hay is long strands of things. I do mean hay, not straw. If you aren't familiar with the reasons why, it would basically be, I would encourage you to read Ruth Stout's stuff. I think she was an amazing woman. But it would basically be because hay has all the nutrients in it. Straw is just the dead stalk of the grass left, and while it's useful for some things, it's putting a lot less nutrients into your soil as it breaks down than hay would be. And that did a phenomenal job of keeping moisture in and keeping weeds down. The only reason there's not hay on the garden right now is because I realized the last hay I'd used had an herbicide on it that was killing my other veggies. So that's removed. Everything seems to be good this spring because I don't know if the camera can see, but I've got little baby beet sprouts that are up all over here. I've got a couple kinds of beets. Some of the bigger plants I did plant as plants. I've got some carrots coming up. I've got some radishes coming up, and more stuff that in the next few days should be up. And it's always really exciting to see green things coming through. But I think I might go a little more of the Charles Dowding route, and he kind of mulches his beds with compost instead of a hay or a straw or Like the Back to Eden garden uses wood chips and so on. I use wood chips on my pathway to kind of keep them clean and mud free. But this dirt really is beautiful now. I have tons of earthworms now. The first year when I turned this dirt over, I think in the entire length of the garden I maybe found 2 worms, and now it's a little bit wet because it did rain last night, so I don't want to get all muddy. But if I dig into there and pull out any random handful of earth, there's usually 3 or 4 worms in every handful. And everything seems to be growing well so far. Like I said, it seems to be sprouting. And my goal is to just, because there's still rocks under here, when I put these hoops in, and I'll do a video on my setup for my frost covers here. That's what you're seeing, the hoops to hold it, and the white stuff is a frost cover. When I shove these into the dirt, it is so frustrating because even though it's just 2 little wire ends, there's so much rock in here, it is nearly impossible to find. You've just got to keep moving around till you finally find a spot where they go through the rock. So underneath this is still solid rock. Now people using these kinds of principles like Rooster River or Charles Dowding, I know he's gardened on sandy soil and clayey soil and rocky soil, and you could even start with like a concrete pad, and if you just feed stuff that's going to break down and compost on top of it, you can basically grow yourself amazing dirt, no matter what you start out with. And my one caution would be make sure you don't end up using things in your compost that have been poisoned by something or another. But other than that, this works really well. And as you see, I now have pretty beautiful soil. Most of it's really beautiful, soft, crumbly, friable, that's what it's called when it has that texture. I do still have a lot of little pebbles in here, so for things like carrots and such, they sometimes get really funny forked shapes on their roots. But just like I said, every time working, I constantly just pitch little pebbles out. And so that's how I've got my soil. So given that, if I moved in anywhere else, even if the soil was incredibly sandy or rock hard clay, I've got a friend who lives just over the hill here who has an absolutely gorgeous garden, and she started with such hard pan clay there when they first moved in a couple decades ago that you need a jackhammer to break it up. And now her dirt is way more beautiful than mine. She grows a gorgeous garden every year with veggies and flowers. So no matter what you have to start with, if you can keep adding compost and feeding your soil, you can get absolutely awesome dirt. Just show you here, you can look at all my little radishes, but here's a chunk of soil. See how it's just all nice and loose and crumbly. And like I said, everywhere I go I can always pick out more pebbles out of the dirt. It is starting to rain on me now, but if you look over here in between the grass, there's pebbles all over the place that I have tossed out of the garden over time. Down here at the creek, which I just wanted to show you, is still muddy and flowing high, but a lot lower than it was. And really what I wanted to show you is, this is the dirt. My house is at the top of this hillside, and this is what the soil looks like that my garden is made out of. If you check this out here, the creek actually kind of eroded this edge. That's why it's such a clean cut. You can see rocks and boulders and rock and more rock and more rock, and that's what this entire hillside is made out of. It's all round river rock with a little bit of dirt in between, and that is the foundation that I started with for my garden. For those of you guys who have asked me many times what rain sounds like from inside my house, it is raining right now. You're looking out the window, the lovely garden. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute. You can hear what the rain sounds like with the window open. Mostly just a soft pitter patter with all the birds chirping in between. And then if I close the window, now you're looking through a closed window. It's just a soft, gentle pattering sound on the roof. I find it pleasant, not at all annoying and tin can sounding like a uninsulated tin roof. I really enjoy listening to rain on my roof, and right now it's making the veggies grow, which is amazing. Thanks for watching, folks. If you're interested in more info on my off-grid tiny house life, check out some of my other videos here. And if you like what you're seeing, click the little picture of my house to subscribe and then hit the little bell so YouTube actually notifies you every time there's a new video available. See y'all next time.